What's something harmless your parents did to you as a kid that really screwed you up as an adult? My dad was a huge yeller. Any little thing that went wrong was a full-on expletive-filled barrage. It never scared me or anything because he wasn't violent. However, in my adult life, my wife and I will argue and she'll tell me to stop yelling. I don't have the same yelling scale as other people, it seems. So I think I'm holding back and she thinks I'm yelling. It's very difficult to judge internally, but I'm working on it. My dad's yelling made me terrified of people raising their voices. Same. I full-on panic if I hear that particular tone in someone's voice, even if it's not directed at me. Fortunately, I'm not a yeller myself, though. It's actually really sad. I think his father was far worse, so it's just how he communicates, and I'm not sure he's aware how hurtful it is to others. I'm not yelling! My father yelling. Making it a rule that I could hang out with friends once a week until I graduated high school. I started losing friends very, very quickly. People just wouldn't invite me places because I could never go. The nights I could go out, I had to be back by 8. In high school, before high school it was earlier. So I really didn't have anyone. Nobody wanted to hang out from 5 to 8 on a Friday night. They wanted midnight or so. I completely lack the confidence to make friends now. I haven't had a friend over in years. I'm 28 and my birthday is coming up. When I turn 30, I can't have a party. I'd have nobody to invite. I had a boyfriend throw me a surprise party for my 24th. His friends showed up and my family showed up. It was uncomfortable seeing like 10 people at a bar be my party when none of them were my friends. My brother ended up inviting his friends to add more people. My dad has an issue of making fun of people's appearances and then quickly saying, "I'm just kidding," followed by compliments. I've realized over the years that this has really messed with my self-esteem. It made me really self-conscious and I never really think I look good. I think in the father's defense, there can be an art to doing this with, and I can't stress this enough, with the right people. Don't do it to your kids all the time. My mum used to joke a lot about my looks. If I stayed in the car for something, she would say, "Show me your ugly face. Good. Now no one will want to kidnap you," etc. Everything she said was, "Because it's funny, you know I don't mean it. You love me because I'm like this." But all it's done is leave me with a mean sense of humor to train myself out of, and constant negativity about myself. I had kinda the opposite experience. My mum would tell me little tips on improving my acne without provocation, then try to tell me I looked just fine. Mixed signals about whether or not I looked fine or not has left me unable to see myself as attractive in any way. After hitting puberty fairly early, anytime my parents saw me in a bathing suit or a tank top and shorts or anything remotely form-fitting, they'd start making jokes about how I was getting fat and needed to watch out if I wanted to stay pretty. I doubt they'd even remember doing it, it was so offhand, but it stuck with me. I was never even remotely close to overweight. I was developing curves, like women do at that age, so by high school I had an eating disorder. I'm at my heaviest now, in recovery, and my BMI has never been above 22. But there's a voice in the back of my mind that I have to fight all the time that tells me actually, I'm on the brink of obesity and I won't be pretty anymore if I eat the second piece of pizza or if I skip out on my 7th day in a row at the gym. My parents did the exact same thing. Offhand little comments, I'm sure they never paid 2 seconds thought. That impacts me to this day. My mother was horrified when I repeated a comment she made to me as a teenager about me eating so much that I'd be as big as a house. Thought there was no way in God's earth she'd ever say that. And I'm like, okay, then why do I remember it 10 years later? And also, why do I have an eating disorder? It almost makes it more hurtful when it's offhand or unintentional. Then you second guess and wonder if they're making jokes to gently tell you their real feelings. Same as you, I've never realistically been overweight, but I have no ability to look at my body and see what's really there. But I'm starting to get better, and I'm glad to hear that someone else is too. Using fast food and candy as an incentive for everything. I was morbidly obese by 11, and high school is rough when you're heavy. It took most of high school to reach a normal weight, and I still count calories and watch my diet carefully to sustain it. There's ample evidence which shows childhood obesity has dramatic effects on adulthood health, even if you manage to lose the weight. I'm glad you lost some weight and are taking steps to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Thanks, it's been more effort to maintain over the past 10 years than it was losing the weight. About 95% of people who go on diets gain it all back or end up at a higher weight. The best way to avoid the trap is to avoid needing to lose weight at all, which comes back to parents helping their kids with healthy eating and exercise. My dad has a temper and yells angrily about everything. Not really at us, but if some little thing doesn't go perfectly the way he wanted, he will just start screaming about it. This has happened so often and still does, and it contributes largely to the severe anxiety disorder I have now. My dad would do this too. It would almost always cause me to start crying, and then he would start yelling at me for crying for no reason. It would get to the point where he would yell if he even thought I was starting to cry, even if I wasn't, and all that has left me with some bad anxiety too. My mum claims that he yells because he's partially deaf and doesn't know how loud he is, but I don't know if I believe that. I get this. I have sound-induced anxiety too because my mum's husband/sperm donor never spoke to me, only yelled at me. Even a car backfiring gives me a mini panic attack. I will mention that this seems to be one of the more common contributors to adult anxiety that has come up in this thread. Parents, save it for the occasions where it's really needed, if at all. My grandmother would never let me leave the house. Now I'm extremely antisocial. It's actually incredible with all the other stories I'm reading that are talking about parents who seem almost bat crap insane. I'm hearing people who are 14 that were trapped in their houses because their parents were control freaks. I mean, when I was in elementary, I got bullied for never being cool and never being seen outside. I lived in a pretty bad neighborhood, but it wasn't a problem. You guys need to throw your whole parents away. They denied ever sending me and my sister to a day camp at which I was harassed by an adult. Being told that my emotions were wrong/not right. For all the good grades I had, I'm emotionally immature. Yeah, I was straight out not allowed to be angry. It wasn't a written rule, but that's how it worked. No matter the problem at hand, or even if it was a completely reasonable thing to be upset about, putting on an angry face, raising my voice, or changing my voice tone would result in my mother getting very aggressive. And suddenly the actual problem was forgotten, and it was all about the attitude. The only way to actually solve some problems was to repress anger as much as possible. But then she wouldn't take the problems seriously because obviously I wasn't upset over them. But saying something like, "This makes me very angry," even with a fully calm voice, would just get her angry because nothing was ever a reason for me to be angry apparently. But not for her. She could show her anger as much as she wanted. Then she doesn't understand why I don't like to share my problems with her. I guess she's like that because Grandpa used to be one of those angry guys who started shouting very loud at the tiniest issue. I didn't get to know him, but everything she's told me about him went in the same direction. So I guess she's just scared of aggression, and that's why she reacts so strongly to it. Grandpa likely wasn't allowed emotions as a kid. It was also times of war, which likely messed with him too. Sometimes people can be hard to understand, but there's always a reason. Cleaning. My mother always freaked out and screamed anytime something looked messy. The whole cleaning process, picking up items, laundry, dusting, vacuuming, was always a huge ordeal and never good enough for her. I hate cleaning and I try really hard to keep my apartment neat, but I always associate cleaning with screaming. My husband is more messy than I am, and I sometimes can feel myself getting overly agitated with him, and I try so hard not to scream at him over a pile of laundry. I relate to this so darn much. My mother has insane and arbitrary standards for tidiness, and if I don't do something right or don't do it exactly right at the right time, it's yelling time. Getting teased about being a girl just trying to be friends with everyone, including boys. Every single one of them was, "my boyfriend," or "I must have a crush" or something. It can't just be me wanting to have friends. To this day, I really can't get close enough to guys to have a serious relationship. That, and I have a neglectful father, and every time I consider it, I'm petrified of bringing home an actual boyfriend to meet the family because I don't want to be teased anymore. It made me just feel so uncomfortable about who I can, should, or want to be friends with because I'm paranoid my family is mocking me behind my back. It didn't even need to be a friend. Just any story about anything that had occurred at school that happened to have a girl involved. "Oh, who is X? Is she your girlfriend?" Nowadays it's, "How come you never tell us anything about your personal life?" I grew up with Indian parents in America. "Who are those girls you're talking to? Why are you talking to them?" Every girl I talk to they look upon with suspicion to the point where they took me out of school and did homeschool to avoid friends? Seriously, my parents ruined my social skills forever. All I wanted my whole life was to fit in, to be a normal kid. Now they get angry that I don't share stuff with them. I always log out of my social media so they don't view it, and they complain that I'm neglecting my family because I hang out with my friends. I just know I'm going to raise my kids better, differently. I will never trust my parents. As someone whose parents quietly despaired of him ever bringing home any sort of partner until it actually happened, I guess I got the better end of that balance. When I was potty training, my potty was in the middle of the room. I have vague memories of my mum's friends watching me poop and laughing at my poop when I stood up. These memories are confirmed by my mum after I asked her. I'm 100% sure that's the reason I can't poop in public, or even at home if anyone can hear me. If you were anything like my nephew, you may have demanded an audience in the first place. He drags his potty out from the bathroom to the living room and wherever the most spectators are. I can't fault his competence. Gaze upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. My mum, jokingly, she says it was a joke nowadays, asked if I was pregnant every time my time of the month was late. I would spank my lower stomach for hours on end because I thought I was pregnant from sitting on the toilet. I was 12, and I didn't do the deed with anyone until I was 19. Anytime I would cry or express anger, I would be teased for being upset. She's mad. Boo-hoo. I ended up shutting down and finding unhealthy ways to cope that eventually plagued my life in more ways than one. They always shrugged off my accomplishments of course you got straight A's, you're so smart, or congrats on this huge accomplishment, but I mean, we're not surprised. What they thought they were doing was complimenting me, and they were doing that. I never saw it was anything else until I grew up and realized I won't try at anything I'm not immediately good at and feel inferior to anyone who's better than me at something. While they were complimenting my intelligence, they should have been complimenting my work ethic. Now, I struggle with a fixed mindset and feel like a big bucket of wasted potential because I'm so terrified of failure. It's not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong, and we didn't know about the importance of grit and growth mindset back then. Ironically, a lot of smart kids get screwed over by a whole fixed mindset thing, even though they were complimented by it at the time. My parents do the same thing. Them giving me this expectation isn't helpful to my worrisome mind. I'm constantly expected to get better grades than my sister, even though she cheated on a lot of her work. I can account for my fear when my American history teacher told me that I got an 85% on my test. I ran to the bathroom and cried for about 30 minutes. Knowing my parents would be angry, I felt as if I was in a corner with nothing I could do. When she passed the grades out during class, the next day, I got a 95. I was really confused. I asked her about it, and she claimed she never said that I got an 85 on it. I looked through, and I really had a 95. I must have misheard or something, but it ended up seriously damaging my psyche. I seriously wish that I didn't have these expectations at all. I hope that nobody else ever has these, too. Watching my brother get praised for bringing it up to C's and rewarded with a dirt bike, while I sit waiting in the next chair to get reamed for slacking off and failing and then getting punished or grounded because there was one B on my report card. Then again, my dad's biggest parenting achievement was apparently, "At least I didn't get drunk and beat you all the time." Yay. Thanks, Yondu. I was raised in a church where virginity until marriage was sacred. I'd been a victim of the unspeakable act and repeatedly harassed as a child. The messages tumbling around in my mind growing up involved a lot of shame and being inherently unworthy of love. I'm finally in therapy for the abuse and more, and undoing the lies I learned so very well. Mum smoked 3 packs per day but didn't want us kids to be around the smoke all the time, so she set up her personal space, i.e. a chair where she reads books anytime she isn't working. Away from us, and we missed out on a whole lot of affection or interaction because of her habit. It took a lot of time and healing to have a healthy relationship with a woman. Happily married 8 years this coming October. Congrats on your marriage. Gosh, that's a mixed viewpoint. I mean, nice that she cared about caring for your health and well-being, but my God, interacting with your kids is so important. She could have taken down her per-day intake to exercise some care with her kids. My mum used to tell my sister and I that she was too claustrophobic to hug us. Didn't have that problem with our little siblings though. I guess the claustrophobia cleared up. My mum used to tell me stories about a big hairy spider that was gonna come bite me if I got out of bed at night. I still frickin' hate spiders. My mother got tickets for a small boat and canal tour in Amsterdam for the 2 of us. Somehow, as a little kid, I wanted to keep those tickets, 'cause why not? So instead of just giving them, she wanted me to practice mental calculation for a bit. So she gave me a few questions on the lines of, a ticket for an adult costs this much, one for a child, this much, how much should a family pay with X adults and X children? I got 2 or 3 right, the last one on the other hand, I couldn't get it right. She even asked me 3 or 4 times more for the last one, each time more aggravated than the last time. Last answer yet again wrong, and she got kind of too frustrated with me, and she tore the tickets up and the whole boat trip was probably awkward for me. Now, 10 plus years later, I realize I have a fear of failure. I'm scared to screw up the things I do, say, think, and even how I look. Even now, typing this brings me a bit into tears. Worst fear of failure is that I'm very quickly to think that I'll disappoint my parents and my current boyfriend, making me say sorry way too often as well. Moving around. By the time I'd finished elementary school, I'd been to 5 cities and 2 states. I became very good at making friendships and getting into relationships, but I had a very hard time keeping them. My parents were and are helicopter parents. Along with this, they didn't care enough to teach me valuable lessons or anything I'd actually need in life. It was all grades, 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 Allah, Allah, Allah. The result? I lacked many of the social skills people had, such as basic cooking, social skills, etc., and also had and still have social anxiety, especially with authority, even if I don't see them as a threat, which one time ultimately nearly made me take my own life. My parents wanted me to be happy, which sounds fine out of context, but no. I wasn't allowed to be anything but happy. You can bet I would have gotten a lecture for anything less than cheerful. Comfort is antagonizing. Disappointment and annoyance feels shameful, and to this day I don't fully trust anyone at all with my thoughts or feelings. My dad would often playfully hit me in the head with plastic bottles, rolled up newspapers, etc. He usually hit harder than he probably meant to, and then when I'd say ow, he'd tell me to toughen up, that couldn't have hurt, blah blah. Now years later, I still find myself flinching at the most random of things. Oof. There's a saying, all kids deserve parents, but not all parents deserve kids, and I've been thinking it the entire way through recording this. My parents would scream and fight over a lot of stupid things and then blame it on me and not my siblings. When they did that, they brushed it off, didn't think anything was wrong when I cried about it, and yelled at me for being dramatic. I'm a triplet and the middle child, so I always had to do stuff my siblings didn't. When I was around 10, my brother and I had a big fight, and I was forced into anger management therapy. But my brother wasn't, so it really messed with my head. They also talk to the other two a lot, and when I try to say something, they unconsciously ignore me, because they think I'll say something hurtful or stupid. My mum used to make fun of me for fulfilling manly stereotypes, such as only wanting to wear one pair of shoes, hated makeup and clothes, shopping, even as a teen, not being able to find something despite it being right in front of me, etc. I'm really insecure about my femininity now. So much to where if I do something annoying that's stereotypically feminine and someone calls me out on it, I'm secretly super flattered that they think I'm girly. I'm also bisexual, so being a woman who likes women sometimes makes me feel really masculine and uncomfortable, even though I know it's irrational. Just laughing at me for getting upset about something stupid and telling me how silly I was being. There's nothing wrong with that, but I was just a sensitive kid and took away from that showing your sad and upset emotions was bad, and that it should be avoided in company of others at all costs. It really messed me up in the long term, and I didn't get help because I couldn't talk about it to my parents, for the same fear of being laughed at. I can't blame them, and I really don't, because it's really something I see quite a lot of, and with 99% of kids, it's harmless. I, however, am still recovering from years of mental crap. Neglect. Neglect seems harmless. People are busy with their own lives, right? But that lack of love does terrible things to a child. Severe depression, self-esteem issues, trust issues, loneliness becomes normal. Numbness becomes a habit. I wish I were dead, but the medicine helps, a bit. As a child, my parents would send me to bed without dinner if I misbehaved. I'd be so hungry in the middle of the night and I'd scramble up to the pantry and sneak whatever I could, mostly snacks for school lunches. I'd sneak back, squirrel it down, and throw the wrappers away carefully. I was also raised as the good one or the people pleaser. I've struggled with secret eating, binging, portion control, and anxiety for as long as I can remember. Eating never made sense. Couple this with the people-pleasing, and I'm just a chubby, conflicted mess with a high tolerance for all kinds of narcissistic people. I'm a parent now, and it's all clear as day. I'm working on myself, and hopefully I can be better to my kids. Helicopter parenting. I was never out of my mum's sight. I know she's an abuse survivor of a bad home, and I know she really did mean well, but now I'm suspicious of everything and afraid to try new things. Both my parents would sometimes leave randomly without telling me. My mum would leave whenever she was angry at my dad, and I was so young that I thought she would never come back. My dad didn't like to talk about it, and it would sometimes be for extended periods of time. My dad would disappear to the bar and not come home until 1 or 2ish in the morning, where I lived with him. About 13 years old at the time. Neither one sees how this could have negatively impacted me. I still get very scared of people leaving me. They sent me to speech therapy when I was 12. Until then, I had no idea that I had a bit of a speech impediment, and while I was a bit shy, I never felt bad about the way that I spoke. Speech therapy would have been great if I'd wanted to be there. Instead, I was suddenly made to feel like I was terrible at talking, and almost as bad, being forced to fix the way I talked with a bunch of 3 to 5-year-old kids. I had my own teacher, but I still had to wait with all the smaller kids. I was so angry that I actively tried not to do anything that the speech therapist wanted me to do. By my parents' thinking, sending me to speech therapy was probably an investment for my future. Talking is one of the pillars of society, but 15 years later, I still occasionally feel extremely self-conscious about the way my voice sounds, and I dread talking with people that I don't know. I would never tell them this, of course. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.